a Straussian philosophy, a philosophy that believes that society is divided into two classes. The class of the masses, who need be told only what they need to know, and the class of those who rule. A philosophy that believes that the masses don't know what's good for them, and therefore you have to do what's good for them. Now the fact that the United States of America is in real predicament, is in real trouble, is what motivates this interest. It's a camouflage, it's a language to cover the failure to find weapons of mass destruction in Iran, a failure in the policy in the Middle East. And the reason why the Americans came to Lebanon to meet Hamas and Hezbollah is that these former American officials can see that their country is in real trouble. And they've come to see for themselves if there is an exit out of this predicament in which George W. Bush has put them in. So vote against the motion, because George W. Bush and his administration are not interested in democracy. They are only interested in their interests, and their primary interest now is to get out of the predicament they have placed themselves in. Thank you.
If it was all such a failure, the actions of the United States, how do you get away from the fact that they've held democratic free elections in Iraq, the first for decades, and that the Palestinians have successfully held their democratic elections for president, despite the fact that you warned the elections would be fixed before they took place?
Didn't you laugh, Tim, when you heard George W. Bush say that the Syrians must get out of Lebanon because elections cannot be held under occupation? Didn't you laugh?
No, could you answer that question first before
how can you hold an election under occupation? How can you hold an election when the Sunni community of Iraq, which is not a minority by the way, is excluded from the process?
So you're saying the election was invalid?
Of course, invalid under occupation.
What, Ajami, you wanted to come in here?
I mean, look, it's kind of pathetic, even the style, even the argument. I mean, this is the voice of the past. The way you've done this, the way you've responded to the critique, the way you phrased this argument. The Arab world has had it with all this. The idea is to change this region. The idea is to change it, not to just simply keep shouting at it. So what are we saying about democracy? We're saying, of course, all democracy springs from every society. It's not so much that Bush has remade this region, but the fact that American power is so dominant in this region. It matters greatly that the dominant power in the world signals a choice, that it has made a choice in favor of liberty.
All right, gentlemen in the front row, you have a point to make.
Question for Professor Ajami. Can you have democracy with occupation? I thought democracy by definition is for the people who are free. Thank you.
This is a very disrespectful view of what happens in Iraq. I was in Iraq. I've gone to Iraq 3 times since the fall of the despotism of Saddam Hussein. I thought I met an interim president, one of the most decent men in public life I've met, Sheikh Ghayth. I traveled to Kurdistan with a deputy prime minister by the name of Barham Saleh. Again, one of the most talented young leaders of Iraq. Look, you tell me that can there be democracy with occupation? The occupation is temporary, my friend. It's temporary. And you know what? Look at Japan, what it did with the gift of a temporary occupation, American occupation from 1945 to 1952, and what it was able to do with its future and its economy afterwards. Give the Iraqis time. You have to grant them that patience.
Dr. Azzam Tamimi, I'm not sure everybody heard your interjection. You said puppet government, so you dismissed that idea.
Of course, the Americans come in, occupy Iraq, they remove a puppet and bring in a puppet. I mean, who created Saddam Hussein in the first place? Come on, grow up. Saddam Hussein was armed to the teeth by the United States of America, was given chemical weapons to fight the Iranians and kill the Kurds. And then
but who got rid of him in the end?
Yes, well, they are the masters. They brought someone, they removed them, they brought somebody else. Let's talk about the real thing. There is no real democracy unless the people themselves decide to go for it.
Lady at the back.
This question is directed at Fouad Ajami. You say you compare George W. Bush to Christopher Columbus, who discovered America. Do you seriously think that George W. Bush discovered democracy? I cannot understand how a person like him, who goes into a country and totally devastates it, kills the people, and you try to tell me this is democracy? Isn't democracy all about the right of choosing for yourself, the right of freedom?
I don't think that George Bush decided to go into Iraq and because he enjoys killing people. He went there because American national security required him to go there because that regime was representing a threat to American interest in the region and threatening his neighbors. We shouldn't forget this regime invaded 2 countries. Saddam Hussein invaded 2 countries. And I'm really surprised, while everybody complains about the victims, and of course it's always sad when there's war, and it's bound to be ugly. The victims, of the Saddam regime, okay, and nobody complains about, the hundreds of thousands who were killed by Saddam Hussein. Nobody cares whether, the Iraqis have a chance at freedom now. Everybody seems to be saying, no, we prefer our dictators. We prefer Saddam Hussein to continue killing people systematically. And, let's forget about this democracy.
Salameh, this is not the issue. We all agree that
what is the issue?
If a dictator is a brutal person, he deserves to go to hell. There is no question about it. Saddam Hussein and all the dictators in the Arab world who show no respect to their citizens don't deserve even to live, in my opinion. But what we are asking here, why did America do it? Did America go into Iraq to rescue the Iraqi